When you tell someone that thing you made is amazing, you should sell that, do you realize you're telling them to become a business owner? I've had a lot of jobs, like a lot. Over the course of a decade, I worked in pretty much every entry-level arena you could think of. And a lovely thing about trying so many different, well, I'm not going to call them career paths because the turnover rate is insane, so many different jobs, is that you find out what you're really good at and what you're absolutely terrible at. I'm a terrible salesperson. I don't want to sell you anything. I don't really want to sell anyone anything. And there's a pretty solid upfront reason for this. I don't like being sold to. How are you going to be good at something if you personally can't stand it, right? Anytime I see stuff about what makes a good salesperson, I am cringing inside. And probably outside, because my face loves a good cringe and doesn't usually realize it's happening. I'm the person that is sincerely hoping that no one in a store will even notice my presence. Self-checkouts are my favorite addition to this century. I'm not going to look up any other thing that was invented this century. We're going with it. If I have to talk to a sales rep in order to make a purchase and I feel even the slightest bit pressured, I will cave and absolutely make the purchase, but I will also quietly and inwardly despise that sales rep for the rest of my life. Also, I grew up without a lot of money. I worked so many jobs in my 20s, not for the sheer funsies of it. It was because I needed money. And sales at its core is getting people to spend money. So y'all, the guilt. I don't like where that one went. Come out of there. I was a bridal consultant for a bit, selling, wedding dresses. Never once made commission. Never. But you know what? I also never pressured somebody into buying a dress they couldn't afford. If they said, my budget is $300, I said, here's one for $250 and you look amazing in it. If you're wondering how all of this affects my interactions with and acceptances of sponsorships over on the main channel, ooh, I just burped. Not loudly, but like it was on the word. There's kind of a weird clash in that area because while I don't love selling stuff, even if it is stuff that I genuinely personally like, I do really enjoy writing copy, a job that I never had but did apply for. I feel like no one really considers one's ability to sell when they tell you you should sell stuff. Right? Have you ever made something decently impressive or just like nice looking in a photograph or a video? If you have, there's a big chance that you've been told you should sell that. Do you enjoy calligraphy? Well, you could make a business of handwriting people's wedding invitations. Do you dabble in pottery? Could be selling those pots. Enjoy baking? People pay for cakes. Have you ever sewn a garment for yourself? Sew one for someone else. They'll pay you. And the fun thing is, these comments, these reactions to whatever it is you do or make are compliments and encouragement. At least they're meant that way. It's like the ultimate way of saying, I like what you did, or just good job. You could sell that equals A+ work. But like, we all know what goes into selling, right? We are all aware of that. Aren't we all aware of that? Because the second that you are selling something, directly selling a product, not just doing an ad for somebody else's product, but selling your own, you are now a business, a small business, with all of the business stuff that comes with a business wrapped up inside, but it's just you alone, by yourself, to do all of it. A small business only has to slightly scale or do well before the person who was making stuff or doing stuff that people liked, and that one can assume the maker or the doer themselves enjoyed, no longer has time to make or do because they're too busy selling and running a business. And if you're a business-minded person, if you're a great salesperson, if you're into that whole world, then that is amazing for you. Successful business, yay! But like, we know not everyone is a business-minded, sales-loving person, right? Monetize your hobby. It's the be-all, end-all. You can escape from the job you hated by doing the thing you used to do in your free time because you loved it so much, and there's definitely no downside to that, because you'll get rich doing what you love. Monetize your hobby. Maybe it's Shark Tank culture. Maybe it's capitalism. Everyone is looking for something that they can sell, so when they see someone else making something that they could sell, they can't help but tell them, "You've struck gold. You've made something sellable. Good for you. Now start selling it immediately before I scream." There are different ways to monetize your hobby, and I'm pointing this out because my currently chosen career is technically a form of monetizing my hobby. So let me make it clear right now that there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing so in any way, shape, or form if you want to do that, if you're prepared for that. Dude, absolutely go for it. Monetize the crap out of that hobby. Use what you have. But can we please stop telling other people that just because they've made something cool means they have to sell it? Can we recognize that that's not for everyone? Because I think there are a lot of people who have been told you should sell that, and so they did. They started businesses because they got so many comments from friends, family, strangers alike that you have a sellable product. And then it became all-consuming, as a small business will, and it broke them and they burnt out. And the thing that is the most sad to me is that people lose their original love for things because of this you have to sell it pipeline. Hi. Puppy break. Oh, my squish. Hello. What a little squishy butt. Oh, that was a big yawn. Bye, I love you. You don't have to sell it. Maybe you just want to share it. You can try monetizing the sharing of it. Hello, YouTube. Or you can just share it for the joy of sharing it. And when people inevitably tell you that that's A+ sellable work, you just nod and smile. And don't reply to their comments because you're so overwhelmed from constantly repeating your reasons for not starting a small business. Not that I have any personal experience in this. Okay, obviously I have personal experience in this. I make clothing for myself. Sometimes well, sometimes poorly, always with a wing and a prayer and absolutely no idea what I'm doing. And they look nice in photos and videos, so I get massive numbers of comments on Instagram saying, "Where's the link? What's your store? Do you take commissions? Why aren't you making more sizes? Can you do one in green for me?" Not just comments either. DMs, Etsy messages, emails. Yo, I just gotta say, if you've checked everywhere and you can't find a store or a link to buy the thing that you're looking at, and you had to email a person to ask how to buy it, if they're actually trying to sell, that would be a pretty poor business. Number one rule of selling a product seems to be make sure people can find where to buy the product. I don't know, maybe people think it's some sort of exclusivity thing. It's not. I don't sell clothing, but I considered it. Somewhat briefly. Technically, I continue to consider it. It's tempting. I can see why so many people try to monetize their hobby. The people telling you to sell stuff can turn into this immense pressure to the point where you're thinking, am I a total idiot not to do this? I should just do it, right? Why am I not doing it? 200 strangers just told me they would buy this thing that I made. What more do I need to know? Luckily, I have some prior experience selling things that I made, and it was the not so great memories of this that made me hit the brakes this time around. For starters, it didn't take long after I took up embroidery for people to start asking if I would stitch something for them. Literally, I started the hobby right before getting on a cruise ship for a 6-month contract, and by the end of the contract, a fellow crew member had commissioned me to make 2 pieces for them. They were the very first pieces that I posted on Get Thee to the Stitchery because I felt legit now. I had sold artwork. Actually, I'm pretty sure somebody commissioned a piece from me before I even got on that ship. But I hated selling, actively selling. So I just posted work and tried to build an Instagram following and let people reach out to me specifically if they wanted to commission a piece. And that continued to happen every now and then from family, friends, I think only a couple of times from total strangers. And then during the unemployment of 2020, I opened an Etsy shop because y'all, I was stitching at a ridiculous rate, and I now had piles of finished embroidery pieces. I needed to sell them because I didn't need to keep them, you know? If you go to my Etsy shop now, it does still exist at the time that I'm filming this, you'll quickly notice that it has nothing but digital PDF embroidery tutorials. Yeah, selling physical products went downhill for me real fast. I don't really know what it was about it. The pieces were already done. They were ready to go. All I had to do was list them and then wait for someone to add to cart and check out, and then I just had to box it up and ship it, right? So easy. It stressed me out. And I didn't even get that many purchases. I didn't feel happy or excited or relieved when someone bought my artwork because I just immediately had this wave of stress about shipping it, about how much that would cost, about packaging it safely, about how long it would take, or what if it didn't arrive, or even if it did arrive, would the person actually like it and feel it was worth the money that they had spent on it? I don't know, y'all. I realize most of the stresses are not really justified, but I cannot help being the person that I am, and they were there. As I started making embroidery patterns, digital products that first of all required no follow-up from me once they had been purchased, and second of all, sold for pretty dang low prices that are hard to regret as long as you get something decent in return for it, I quickly removed more and more of my physical products. And guess what still sits in a giant box in our living room? A whole bunch of finished embroidery pieces that I still need to pass on to other people at some point because I don't want them. I just don't want to have to sell them. And craft fairs, who are we kidding? That's a nightmare scenario for me. But you know, I think this is another area that no one really considers about making to sell, about starting a small business because you make something lovely. The second you start selling that product, you now have a customer service department, or rather, you are the customer service department. Even with just digital products, I've still considered shutting down my Etsy shop numerous times because part of having it means answering messages from customers and potential customers, which, let's be honest, 90% of the time for me are just people not knowing how to download a PDF. As soon as you start selling a product, you're going to get feedback, not just public reviews of your product that may or may not be hard to take, but also issues that you yourself have to fix. The product didn't arrive. The product didn't arrive fast enough. The product arrived in poor condition. The product was different than I expected. The product doesn't fit. The product is the wrong color. The product is the wrong size. I don't like it. I ordered it on accident. These messages and issues may be debilitating when you, the person who spent time and effort making the thing in question, have to read and reply to and fix all of them yourself. Even if you don't mind making and are able to make your product in large enough quantities to sell, there is so much other stuff tied up in selling. Stuff that doesn't seem to come into consideration when people say, but you could make a fortune selling those. Even before my selling embroidery experience went down, I had another experience with monetizing a hobby, and this one should have been all of the warning that I needed because it was short-lived and truly destructive to my enjoyment of said hobby. 'Twas baking. I love to bake. We baked all the time when I was growing up, and the joy of that creative outlet was incredible to revisit when I finally transitioned from college dorms and cruise ship cabins to having a real full-size kitchen again. I really got back into it and started experimenting and exploring a lot more when I was living in Florida for the third time. Yeah, third time. Same time I was embroidering like crazy and letting people ask me if they wanted a commission. I had 3 pretty stressful, draining jobs back to back, and the last one I actually quit because it was destroying my mental and physical health. And while trying to figure out where I would work next, I had about a month of unemployment, during which time I dove even harder into embroidery, as well as into baking and cooking. And then the bank account got scary low and I got a job at David's Bridal, first as the aforementioned consultant, and then when they realized that I can sew better than I can sell, which isn't saying much, in their alteration department. Fun fact, this was my second time working at David's Bridal and would not be my last. I typically worked the Saturday opening shift, among others, and I usually didn't work on Friday, so I started baking something new and fun and kind of elaborate every Friday and then bringing it into work on Saturday, honestly just to get rid of it because Matt doesn't like most desserts and I can't be eating whole pies by myself. That was the first time that I'd actively brought food to other people, like the first time that I had baked for someone outside my family. And it was honestly so validating and delightful to me. I'd quickly come into the break room in the morning, hoping it was empty, drop the dessert in the corner, leave a note on the whiteboard like, hey, here's what this is, it's for everyone, please help yourself, and then get the heck out of there and go clock in. And I specifically would not go back to the break room until my lunch break, something like 4 hours later. And on almost every occasion, when I returned, the tray was empty. My biggest fail was an attempt at pistachio cardamom Chelsea buns. I definitely went overboard on the cardamom, which is already like not a super common flavor here, and yeah, they did not get eaten. I didn't like them either, so fair enough. But this was the perfect situation for me to share my baking. It was low stakes. No one had asked me to bring something in. No one was giving me anything for it. There were no expectations and no consequences if the thing that I made turned out to be bad. Also, though, I didn't have to watch anyone have a reaction to it. Like, I cannot stress enough how horrifying it is for me to receive in-person, face-to-face feedback on something I've made, regardless of whether it's positive or negative. I could not be made more uncomfortable than having to watch people eat and react to food that I made, and I didn't have to. It was either gone, I guess they liked it, or it wasn't. I'll try again next week. Anyway, this went on for a couple of months before a coworker approached me and asked me to bake something for her. She'd pay me to bake that thing that I'd baked a few weeks ago. Here's the thing. I internally freaked out upon being asked to bake for pay because I knew that I didn't really want to do that the pressure would destroy all of the joy of baking. But then also I had gotten so many comments on photos of my desserts from old family friends saying, when are you writing a cookbook? When are you opening a bakery? Are you selling your bakes? So then of course, another part of my brain was like, why wouldn't you say yes to this? You have a part-time job that you don't exactly love, story for another time, and you love baking. You're insane to not say yes to getting paid to bake. Also, saying no to people's faces is not my strong suit, so of course I said yes. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a language barrier between the two of us, and we were both pretty quiet people, and as aforementioned, I was internally very uncomfortable in that moment, so I did not clarify enough. And what ended up happening is I definitely thought I knew which pie of mine she was asking for, and I am 99% sure I was wrong. How do I not know for sure? Well, people are polite. So I made the thing the next week that I really thought was the thing that she wanted, and I brought it in for her, and she looked a little confused, and the interaction was a little awkward, but then most of my interactions with humans are a little awkward and confusing, so I was like, I guess that was fine. And then I overheard her saying very quietly to a coworker in the corner, my kids won't eat this. And the flood of our original conversation poured back into my noggin, and for the first time, I realized that there was a possibility that she had actually been asking for a different pie of mine. A very different pie. She paid me for the pie that she got. Neither of us brought up the maybe miscommunication, and we never spoke of it again. But it wasn't exactly a great first experience of selling my baking. So I wasn't exactly thrilled when another coworker requested not one, but 2 desserts for the upcoming holiday season. Even better, though there was no miscommunication between us about what she wanted, was 2 desserts that I had never made in my entire life. And of course I said yes. We're all aware of my inability to say no at this point. Honestly, it was fine. I looked up recipes for the 2 things that she wanted. I think it was like a strawberry pie, but like the whipped freezer kind, and then a chocolate mousse cake. Both of them looked nice, but I couldn't exactly try the finished thing. I tried some of the strawberry pie filling and I thought it was pretty flavorless, possibly because it was not at all fresh strawberry season. But I just felt so weird about someone paying me to look up recipes and follow them. Theoretically, I should have tested both of the recipes beforehand and made sure they were good, but then also what would I have done with all of that dessert? And like, she wasn't really paying me enough to justify that much advanced work. And like, I don't know. I gave her the desserts. She paid me. It was all fine. Again, we never really talked about it after that. And I'm pretty sure that was the last time I ever sold my bakes because the experience was horrific for me. Someone else would have loved that situation, would have loved getting to bake for other people, getting to make money off of this thing that they enjoy doing. Heck, one of my sisters is a small business home baker and she loves it, from what I can tell. But it was just so not enjoyable for me, and it sucked all of the joy out of this thing that I had loved doing literally the week before. It wasn't the right fit. I was not meant to sell. I was not meant to run a small business. I was not meant to monetize my hobby in this way. And having had those two experiences, having learned a lot about myself from them, it's pretty safe for me to assume that just because I love sewing, just because I love designing and making garments for myself, does not mean that I would enjoy selling clothing, whether pre-made pieces or commissions or any of it. There is a lot of business stuff that is tied up in being a full-time YouTuber, but it is significantly and very specifically different than running a product selling small business. And that's a difference that's very important to me. This is not to say that I will never, ever, ever sell an article of clothing to someone. I can't say that because I have a whole policy of avoiding the word never. I realize that things can change. Lifestyles can change. Career goals can change. New people can enter your life that change things for you. And I prefer to stay open to that possibility. But also it's like, almost a never. Like, I can't fully picture a situation in which I turn into a selling small business. I'm pretty invested in being a whatever this is. Technically a very small media production company. I have potentially come up with a solution to get rid of the giant box of embroidery in the future via an auction that will be a very brief and quick thing rather than taking up months or being present for years of my life. Potentially one day I might want to sell merch, although that feels ridiculous, and also every company that has reached out about that so far has felt really cheap and scammy. I wanted to talk about this for anyone who's on the precipice. Monetize your hobby. Or don't. Do the thing that you are actually passionate about, that you love, that you are invested in. If that's running a business, great. If that's being an entertainer, cool. If that's knitting gorgeous sweaters that only you will ever have the pleasure of wearing, more power to you, kiddo. And if you do try selling, like I did, and it doesn't work out for you for whatever reason, there are so many reasons why it might not work out for you, please don't feel down on yourself. Don't take it out on yourself. Don't blame yourself for not being able to make it work, or for losing your drive, or for burning out. Business owner is not the right path for everyone, even if they make the best apple pie you've ever eaten. Salesperson is not a role every human will enjoy, even if they have the most sellable product you've ever seen. Monetizing your hobby can be awesome, but please don't sacrifice your joy and your love of that hobby to do so. It's not worth it. Beans. When you tell someone, oh my God, that thing you made is amazing. I didn't like how you started that one. It's okay, we're getting somewhere. Ooh, my needle. No. Yes. You're getting bad. Bad scissors. Being a, that was too overdramatic. I've had a lot of good start. If I have coffee, I make clothing for myself. My voice just cut out there. I feel like there's a car idling. Can there be no idling in this zone, please? Nope, you're not nodding that. Don't nod that. Oh, my eyes are gonna hate me today. My needle. For the second time. Do you like my very official embroidery stand? It's a tub. Ooh.